creative people, it's Sherry with Dragon Wagon Studio. Thank you for joining me today. In this tutorial, I'm going to be decorating an ordinary craft box, but we're going to do it Sherry style, which means I'm going to put in a bunch of extra steps. I'm going to be doing some wood burning, we're going to be doing some cutting, we're going to be doing some resin, some felt lining, some staining, and I'm also going to be adding in a three-dimensional little trinket on top, so make sure you stay tuned for that because you're not going to want to miss what I have in store for this. So without further ado, let's get started, but first hit that subscribe button for me because being a disabled artist in Canada is really expensive. So help a girl out and let's get some more subscribers. Yay! I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much. Now let's get to elevating this box into something pretty cool. All right. So we got our little box. My idea is to put this design on there. I like the flowers in the background of this. I made these on Photoshop, these pictures, in the black and white versions. But I'm going to use that moth. And I chose a moth because I'm using this for my tarot cards, and moths are messengers from the beyond. Deceased family members, or, you know, some kind of guide trying to contact you or to communicate with those types of entities. Or if there's a spirit trying to send you a message, it could come through moths. I actually had, this is wild. A couple years ago, I had my truck stolen, and I had this moth in the house, and it was flying around my head. I was sitting at the computer doing something, and it kept flying around my head, and it wouldn't leave me alone, and it kept landing on me, like it had something to tell me, and popped in my head, like, I wonder if my truck's gonna get stolen. And I was kind of paranoid about it until I went to bed, but there's nothing I can do. Like, I can park it somewhere else. Either way, if someone's gonna steal it, they're gonna steal it. There's no way I could really prevent that from happening. And I didn't really think nothing of it, but I got up in the morning and I didn't sleep well that night. And I got up in the morning, I went and peeked out the window, and shit, my truck was gone. Just seeing that cold start, just tick, 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 as the diesel was not warm enough to drive away in, but yep. So yeah, moths can be messengers, and that is why I'm gonna use the moth to represent my little tarot box. So my idea for this, I'll save this one for later, is to get this on here and cut out the star and pour resin in there, and then cut the butterfly out of another piece of wood, use resin in the wings, and then paste that on top so you have another three-dimensional aspect. Maybe I'll even make a couple more. Anyway, so that's kind of where I want to go with this. So there are numerous ways to go about transferring an image onto wood. There's graphite and carbon paper, there's Mod Podge you can use, you can print images off your computer and use acetone or xylene. There's an abundance of ways to do this, but I am old school and I am just going to do the easiest, fastest, tried and true method. No chemicals involved, no drawing involved, well, some tracing. 8B pencil, use at least a 6B if you can't find an 8B. These are a little rare to find, but they're around. But 6Bs always come in any kind of pencil kit, so you want a dark one or your lines aren't going to show up. Using a regular 2B pencil is not going to work. Well, it will, but not effectively. You want to be able to see your lines. All you're going to do is just color the back with your pencil. You don't have to wait for Mod Podge to dry. You don't have to worry about chemicals. None of that business. I always go both ways. And graphite comes off of wood very easily. Carbon paper can kind of be a little difficult, same with charcoal to remove, so graphite's a better way to go. I'm just going to use Scotch tape. You can use painter's tape too. It's something that doesn't leave a residue. You don't want to be using anything drastic like duct tape or anything silly like that. I don't want residue on there. You can use a ballpoint pen, but I prefer mechanical pencils. Mechanical pencils work really great. I'm just going to do the outline. I'm not going to bother doing the flowers or anything right now. That will all erase off by the time I get to it. So wood burning will be a little bit down the road. So we will be doing some pyrography for the flowers and the background, which always looks so nice. Just gonna do this moth outline, just so I know where he's gonna sit when we get to that stage. All right, there we go. Now I'm gonna get a ruler and get my lines a little starker. Okay, I got my star on there, so now I'm just gonna go and cut that out. I had to redraw it. It was not symmetrical and it didn't look right, so I just redrew it by hand and now it's better. Sometimes you just gotta do it by hand. So I'm just gonna use my little saw blade that I have on my Dremel, and then I will finish up with a coping saw most likely. So this is not gonna get all those small pieces, or I would burn them out. Ouch. Let's use some fire. It'll be faster than me going out to the garage, getting the coping saw, getting that on here, every single cut. So yeah, I'm just gonna do this. So I'm gonna be burning it anyways. Okay. Now I'm gonna go through and just blacken all my edges here. So I got my star all punched out, took all my hinges and latches off and put those away for now. Next step for this would be to add some resin, but I've been thinking about adding this moth, and I think I'm gonna go a different step. I made a test one out of wood and just put some resin in the wings, and the idea is there, but the execution is not. That was kind of my plan, to do something like that along that line anyways. I was going to do it a little bigger, but so you get the idea. I think I'm gonna go with more three-dimensional and try my hand at some wire dipping with resin. So I am going to take this wire, I am going to build some butterfly wings out of this, see if I can try my hand at dipping and make a three-dimensional butterfly to sit on top of that instead. So I think that'd be a really cool effect. So I'm gonna get on with building that. All right. Just gonna a lot of the UV resin here. Just gonna get that. Okay. Those guys. All right, just gonna mix up some dipping resin and then start laying in some color. And to do this, you will need clear glue and a tiny little pin. So there's about maybe 10 mils, 15 mils in there. And you're just gonna take the tiniest, tiniest, tiniest drop, like so tiny, and just mix that in. And that is how you do dipping resin. See, now it's going to be a little goopy. Like that. And that is what we want. It's almost a little too much. Like, you just need the tiniest amount. UV resin in there. You want it thick, but not booger loogie thick. That's better. Let's see this one. Much better. All right. Now, put that away and get alcohol pigment in there. So I'm going to use Passion Purple by Pinata and Stream by Ranger. These look really good together, so I'm going to do the butterfly and the star in these two colors. Put a drop in there. I don't want it really dark. I want the transparency for sure, so I'm only going to use one little drop. It's a very small amount anyways, so I'm just going to mix all that in. Mix that in, and that's perfect. And I think I might add some sparkles in there, because that's fun. Get that nice shimmer in the moth wings with that, I can't remember what the proper terminology is for it, but that little sprinkly dust on them. So I'll just add a little bit of white glitter, very, very fine. I'm just going to take a little pinch of that. And that should give it a little bit of sparkle in the wings. And I like how light these sparkles are. They don't sink, so this will work perfect in this application. I've tried sparkles with dipping resin before and it works great, so yeah, go ahead and play with that. I also should keep this covered up. I have a UV light behind me for my plants, so that's not going to help me. Okay, well, this is going to take a while, so I might as well get pouring this. I'm going to mix up 10 mils of crafting resin, and we'll get filling this up. This is going to take a while to cure. Well, this is doing that, because this is going to be a very slow process. Alright, so first thing we got to do is put a covering on here, and I am going to be using butyl tape for that. So I'm just gonna take these gloves off. One thing I'm gonna have to watch out for here is how I'm putting my tape on, because I don't want any lines when I pour my resin, so I'm gonna have to be careful how I'm putting this. It can prove very tricky. Well, this one's easy, so we'll do that one. There we go. Yeah, there's not really an escape around that. I have to do some sanding. And I'll use that piece there. So yeah, see that little line there? We'll have to do some sanding. That's okay. No biggie. It's par for the course of the resin. Alright, so got my resin made up. Put my gloves back on. Okay, so I am going to split this into two colors, just like the moth, same as the dip resin. So I'm just going to fill these little holes. That's all filled in, and those are all filled in. Good enough. Take a little bit of heat to that. Get the bubbles. Awesome. I'll set that aside to let that cure and keep working on this moth. Oh, I forgot one thing. I wanted to add some little sparkles in there. Can't forget the sparkles. How could I do that? How could I do that? Oh my god. Back to this. Alright. So I got all my little pieces done. So here's a wing. There's the bottom part of the wing. So got a little sparklies in there. So we got the green and the purple, and they just look marvelous. So yeah, I'm really happy with those. So now I'll have to assemble them and get my leaves, and get my wings somehow on here. So I'll figure all that out. I think I'm probably just gonna UV resin it, most likely, because these got pretty hard from the UV resin, so they're not as pliable as they were. So I'll probably just have to cut those down and then glue them on somehow. I'll play around with it and figure that out. But before I do that, our star is all dry and it looks really pretty on this side. I like how the green and the purple are coming together. So now we'll just pull off our butyl tape. That just comes off super easy. Oh, got a little bit of overflow there. That's no big deal. That's why I didn't do any of my sketching, because I can just easily sand that off real quick. You don't want to pull too hard. This wood's really thin, so this is pretty thin on here. Pull your resin right out of. There we go. Oh, looks really cool when the sun comes through it. See if I can show you that in a minute. And get this stuff off. Sticky, sticky, sticky. Boop. So yeah, this is just way easier than dealing with any of the other tapes or other solutions you can use. You can't use painting tape or packing tape. Well, packing tape might actually work too. But painting tape will just melt in your resin and you won't be able to pull it off, and you'll be sanding green tape out of your resin. So that's just like this application is really quick, it's easy. Butyl tape's a little on the more pricier side, but it comes down to what your time's worth. It's a pretty easy application. And there we go. That's all off. So now there's a little bit of stickiness you get with using the butyl tape just from the heat of the resin and melts that adhesive. But that's okay, because we're going to sand these little edges off, and then you can just sand that off. Or you can just take some alcohol and a Q-tip and get it off that way. Either way, it's super easy and it's not a big problem at all. So it's just a little sticky, comes right off. But let's see. There we go. Now you can see right through it. So now that's really cool looking. So that was my idea, just to, you know, use like a plastic transparent coat of resin with some color in there. Alcohol inks are transparent for the most part, most of them. So yeah, now I have to assemble my little moth, which looks more like a butterfly now, and I keep calling it that, but it's a moth. So I'll just put him together, and then we'll put him on there. And how to attach him. I probably should have attached him before I did the dip, but I wouldn't have been able to dip his body if I did that, so. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to, or I can drill little holes, I wonder. Let's try that. At least that way I can get the wire wrapped around it to secure it, and then we'll just glue it in place. Let's try that. That might work. And it really just gives me an excuse to play with some power tools. I like my power tools. What's the smallest one I got here? Whew. It worked. Alright. Yeah, we'll UV resin that in there. I'm gonna make that a little bend in there. Sits more at an angle like that. Okay, let that do its thing. All right, now to clean this off, so I'm going to just get my sander and sand it. Just look how cute that's gonna be. Well, the angle is kind of cute. Yeah, I like that. I like that. Alrighty, just gonna use my Dremel, get a little closer before I start wood burning. All right. most of the resin off. I'm gonna wood burn over it anyways, but just so I'm not inhaling all that, that should do. It's really hard to get in there. That tip's a little fat. It's a little bit fat. Okay, so this is still a little bit wet. So this pencil's not gonna stick to that. Okay, so 8B graphite pencil. Getting that nice and dark. Alright, line this up here. I'm gonna start a little bit bigger, but for the most part, we can get it, I think, there. Let's see what that gets us. That just gets the basic outlines of the flowers, and that's all I need, just to get me a good base on the line work. And I'm just gonna trace this out, take a little peek and make sure, yep, come through, perfect. And draw all this and then it not show up. Disappointment. God, these are so small. Small little flowers. That's what I like about wood burning, is all these tiny little details I can get with pyrography. Those nice crisp lines. I love it. And I love it. Okay, good enough. Let's see here. Well, for the most part, yeah. We got it. We got it. Good enough. Good enough. Let go. Let go. Alright. Alright. Let's get burning. Some wood. This guy, ballpoint. Yeah. So I'm going to be using a ballpoint and then a quill. Okay. So this is a ballpoint nib, which I will be using to draw most of the outline, and then I'll get in some smaller details with the quill. We are going to do some staining now. I am going to get some wax paper down first. Alright, so I'm going to use True Black wood finish. So I'm going to get a respirator on because stain has high VOCs. So I'm just going to foam brush them on since they're so small. Oh, I need to give that a little sand. Got some stickies on the bottom. Must have got some UV resin on there. There, if you spider your hands out like that, you can do the whole outside, all at once. Alright, I'm just going to take and wipe the excess off. And that is how we stain our little box. Done deal, we'll let that dry. So I am going to do the sides of this along here. Alright, let's let these dry. And then, let's see what they look like after they're done. Alright, creative people! Got this first coat of stain on my box. And that is looking good so far. My next step here is going to be putting some polyurethane on this part of the box and getting that sealed with some gloss. I'm gonna go around and do some black on here, and then I do have a plan for this. So we have all this spilt resin, so we will be covering that up, and I'm gonna be doing a felt liner in here, so that is my plan for that, but I just got to get some stain on the edges here, and that is where we are going today. So I will mask up and get painting. I'm just going to use a polyurethane first and just get that curing and getting that all sealed up. And that can just dry while I'm playing around with this one. So I don't really need to seal the inside of this because I'm putting a felt liner in, so I'm just going to do the edges and the outside. That way, if you choose to use your box for jewelry or something, we got a nice soft liner in there, or whatever you plan on using your box for. This doesn't take too long to dry, just a couple hours. So we will let that do its thing there. I'll do the bottom and the next one. There we go. Alright, so that's the polyurethane. Put that away for now. And we'll move over to our black. And I'm not even going to wash my brush. So they are both oil-based products. So I'm just going to get some stain on these edges. With these foam brushes, you just squish them in the corners. Corners filled up. Alright. So I'm just going to need a smaller brush for that area. Like this guy, maybe. Okay, now you let that dry. Big waiting game of hurry up and dry. Hurry up and dry. So I got my box all polyurethaned up, so that is all dry and good and done. So it's nice and shiny, and we will put that aside until we do the felt. And then I did the edges here. We'll do a little touch up there. What happened there? If that was stain or what? Anyway, so I did the edge of the polyurethane. So now we have to address this, which I'm going to address with felt. And then we also have to finish our foliage in the background. So I'm going to paint these little flowers and plant life. And I'm going to actually do it in gouache. So this is gouache. It's their basic set by Windsor & Newton. I love their paints. I use professional paints. They're easy to get your hands on. They're expensive, but expensive paints are worth the money. You don't want to be messing around with projects that you put all this time and effort into and hard work, and then you're going to turn around and use crap paint. That's not going to last and fade. And anyway, you get where I'm going with that. So now I have to try and recreate this stream green and this passion purple color, which turned more kind of a pinky bluey. Oh, in case you didn't know what gouache was, it's basically watercolor and acrylic mixed together. So you can get very opaque colors with gouache, like your white will always show up over on top. And then it can be thinned down into basically watercolors. So you got the advantages of both worlds in that. If you've never used gouache before, that is essentially what it is. Alright, so then we'll definitely need this and this for the purple. And we might have to lighten it. So we'll use these. And then I'll mix some colors and see what I can come up with. See if I can recreate those. And you guys are so lucky. I actually found a clean palette. So I'm one of those artists that never clean my palettes. I'm sure some of you are guilty of that. A little bit of that. Okay, yeah, that's definitely that stream color. Great. Oh, that was easy. Easy peasy. So now I can water that down and thin that out just like watercolor. A little mist of water so it doesn't dry out, just like that. A little trick for you guys. So yeah, there we go. And that was 3 colors to make those. Easy peasy. People think they need all these colors. You guys don't. You just need to learn how to mix them. There we go. Done with gouache. All right, let's get that stain out again. I'm gonna go over this one more time and get that drying. And then we can start working on the felt. Okay, that's that. So we'll let that dry. And then the next step for that will be to resin the lid. And that is what I'm going to do. And I'll pop out that star, make it nice and shiny. Just got some stain on my star, so I'm just going to take some alcohol and a Q-tip and just get that off. And that is ready to pour resin when that stain is dry. Perfect. All right, now it is time to cut the fabric. So we need 13.5 by 8.4 centimeters. Perfect. Okay, cut that. Measure twice, cut once. So I'm just going to use some spray glue to glue these in. You can do fabric glue and crazy glue and all that, but I don't really want any glue coming through. Sometimes you'll get those globs that come through and then it becomes hard. So I'm going to choose the spray glue method. Alright, so I just got LePage multi-purpose spray adhesive, so I'm going to use that to... This is working great. What a great idea. Now we don't have any of that globby glue coming through like you would with like a wood glue or something like that. So this is perfect. So perfect. There. That's that. Wonderful. I'll let that glue dry before I cut it off and get it all over my scissors. So, next step. This is still not dry quite yet. Well, I could cut my foam out for that while that's drying, but we're still waiting on that stain. So this piece will go on the back of that, go on the back of this. We gotta cut that star out. So that's going to be the tricky part. I'm going to be using some tracing paper for that. So I will cut out a piece of tracing paper the same size as this. Okay, here's my star here. Okay, there's my design. Now I'm just going to have to go and cut this out. Alright, there we go. There's our star. That's cut out. Alright, so we got that cut out. Let's get some glue on there. Actually, I don't want to spray it on the felt. I kind of want to just put some here. I can clean the resin off after. Just kind of want to get this middle part first, where it's supposed to be. Perfect. Okay, let's do the rest of it. There we go. All right, so we got our box all polyurethane up. We got our foam in there. Now we are ready to do our final top coat with a little bit of resin, just to make that look like glass. So I just taped off my edges. I'm only doing the top. Just gonna pour in some clear resin. That's all I'm gonna do. Anyway, so I got this all cleaned up. It does look wet, but that's just the urethane. It is dry. I will pour this tape off in about 3 to 4 hours. It's a little cool in here today, so probably more like 4 hours. Spread that to my edges. Oh, that's gonna look so cool. I'm so excited. I'm just trying to even this out. My table is deadly level, but with the foam on the back, I'm not gonna get perfect level, unfortunately. So in hindsight, I should have done the foam last, but waiting for paint to dry. Just trying to get steps done in between. So if you're not in a rush to get a video out when you're making this, do the foam after the resin, and you won't have issues with leveling. Alright, let's get some of these bubbles out. No, we didn't seal them there. Oh no! Oh no!
All the air is coming through there. It's bubble, 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 bubble. Try and fill up all your pockets right off the hop. Check on it frequently. Nothing more frustrating than getting a bunch of pockets on the end. I'm not going to put the moth on yet. I'm going to let this get nice and tacky before I do that. Alright, let's let that dry. And then we'll put this box back together and we'll be done. Yay!
Alright, creative people, here we go. It looks so good. Just look at my little moth. Isn't that so cute? So that is that all put together. Here, I'll open it up. And ta-da! There we go. It looks awesome. I love it. It was a great idea and it turned out great. Now you can see all the sparkles in there too. Kind of looks like a little night sky behind the star with all the flowers. I love it. So there you go. There's a new way for you to elevate any of your crafting boxes for whatever you use them for. This one I'm using for tarot, hence the moth story. And yeah, I'm gonna go get my cards and put them in here. Yep, turned out great. I love it. Looks so good. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button for me. Help me get my content out there. And yeah, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And as always, stay creative. And I'll catch you in the next one.